Besma Ab, well weld, wema feskadus, ahadawamla, amen. Besma Ab, well weld, wema feskadus, ahadawamla, amen. Besma Ab, well weld, wema feskadus, ahadawamla, amen. Malcolm Adil, good morning. Blessed love. Get a break for cure. My little bits of Amharic is by no means as advanced as it could be. But yeah, I'm trying to learn little bits. So, hope you've had a blessed weekend, and on with the reading. Genesis chapter 30. I'm just going to turn the light on. It's a bit dark in here. Whoa. Oh gosh. It's all kicking off. Right. I'm not gonna press stop. I'm just gonna keep going. It's all live. Alright, blessed. As Rachel sees that she has not borne to Jacob, and Rachel was envious of her sister. And to Jacob she says, "Give to me sons, and if there is none, I die." And Jacob's anger burns against Rachel, and he says, "Am I instead of God, who has withheld from you the fruit of the womb?" And she says, "Behold, my handmaid Bilhah, go into her, and she bears on my knees, and I have built up even I from her." And she gives Bilhah her maidservant to him for a wife. And Jacob goes into her, and Bilhah conceives and bears a son to Jacob. And Rachel says, "God has decided for me, and has also listened to my voice, and gives to me a son. Therefore she has called his son Dan." And Bilhah, Rachel's maidservant, conceives again, and bears a second son to Jacob. And Rachel says, "With wrestlings of God, I have wrestled with my sister. Indeed, I have prevailed." And she calls his name Naphtali. And Leah sees that she has ceased from bearing, and she takes Zilpah, her maidservant, and gives her to Jacob for a wife. And Zilpah, Leah's maidservant, bears a son to Jacob. And Leah says, "A troop is coming," and she calls his name Gad. And Zilpah, Leah's maidservant, bears a second son to Jacob. And Leah says, "Because of my happiness, for daughters have pronounced me blessed," and she calls his name Asher. And Reuben goes in the days of the wheat harvest, and finds love apples in the fields, and brings them to his mother Leah. And Rachel says to Leah, "Please give to me the love apples of your son." And she says to her, "It is taking my husband a little thing, that you have also taken the love apples of my son?" And Rachel says, "He therefore lies with you tonight for your son's love apples." And Jacob comes in from the field in the evening, and Leah goes to meet him and says, "You come in to me, for in hiring I have hired you with my son's love apples." And he lies with her during that night, and God listens to Leah, and she conceives and bears a son to Jacob, a fifth. And Leah says, "God has given my hire, because I have given my maidservant to my husband." And she calls his name Issachar. And Leah conceives again, and bears a sixth son to Jacob. And Leah says, "God has endowed me a good dowry. This time my husband dwells with me, and I have borne 6 sons to him." And she calls his name Zebulun. And afterwards she has borne a daughter, and calls her name Dinah. And God remembers Rachel, and God listens to her, and opens her womb, and she conceives and bears a son, and says, "God has gathered up my reproach." And she calls his name Joseph, saying, "Yahweh is adding another son." And it comes to pass, when Rachel has borne Joseph, that Jacob says to Laban, "Send me away, and I go to my place and to my land. Give up my wives and my children, from whom I have served you, and I go. For you have known my service, which I have served you." And Laban says to him, "Now, if I found grace in your eyes, I have observed diligently that Yahweh blesses me for your sake." And also says, "Define your hire to me, and I give." And he says to him, "You have known that which I have served you, in that which your substance was with me, and it is little which I have had of my appearance, and it breaks forth into a multitude. And Yah blesses you at my coming, and now when do I make I also for my own house? And he says, what do I give to you? And Jacob says, you do not give me anything. If you do this thing for me, I turn back. I have delight. I watch your flock. I pass all your flock today and turn aside every speckled and spotted sheep from there, and every brown sheep among the lambs, and the speckled and spotted amongst the goats. It has been my hire, and my righteousness has answered for me in the day to come. And when it comes in for my hire before your face, everyone which is not speckled and spotted amongst my goats and brown amongst my lambs, it is stolen with me. And Laban says, behold, that I were according to your word. And he turns aside during that day the striped and the spotted male goats, and all the speckled and the spotted female goats, every one that has white in it, and every brown one amongst the lambs, and he gives into the hand of his sons, and sets a journey of 3 days between him and himself and Jacob. And Jacob is feeding the rest of the flock of Laban. And Jacob takes himself a rod of fresh poplar and almond and plane tree, and peels him them white peelings, making bare the white that is on the rods, and set up the rods which he has peeled in the gutter, and his water in troughs, where the flock comes to drink, in front of the flock, that they may conceive in their coming to drink, and the flocks conceive at their rods, and the flocks bears striped, speckled, and spotted ones. And Jacob has parted the lambs, and he puts the face of the flock towards the striped, and all the brown of the flock of Laban, and he sets his own droves by himself, and he has not set them near Laban's flock. And it has come to pass, whenever the strong ones of the flock conceives, that Jacob sets the rods before the eyes of the flocks in the gutter, to cause them to conceive by the rods. And when the flock is feeble, he does not set them, and the feeble ones have been Laban's, and the strong ones Jacob's. And the man increases very exceedingly, and he has many flocks and maidservants, and manservants, and camels and donkeys. For these few words I give thanks. Amen. Yes, it's quite a technical chapter, quite long, but it's very detailed, and I guess it's in 2 halves. On the first half, you've got the story of Jacob and the 4 women, basically, that he's married to 2 sisters, Rachel and the name escapes me, Rachel and oh my days, it's just escaped me. Rachel and Leah. Sorry, forgive me. So Rachel and Leah, the sisters, and he loves Rachel more, but he's having more children, essentially sons, with Leah. And so he's having these children with Leah. Rachel gets upset, and there's jealousy between the sisters. Then Rachel gives her handmaid to Jacob to bear her children, but then Leah does the same. So essentially, overall, he ends up having 12 sons with 4 different women, and the daughter Dinah. Excuse me. And for those of you that don't know, these 12 sons are what we commonly know as the 12 sons of Israel, the 12 tribes of Israel, because it's probably in the next chapter, but God changes Jacob's name to Israel. So when you hear the name Israel in the Bible, it's talking about a person, and that person is Jacob. So I'm sure, I thought that would have come already, but actually that must be in the next chapter. I know it's coming soon. So these 12 sons of Jacob are the 12 tribes of Israel. That any of you that know me, my middle name is Naphtali, because I was born in January. That's a whole other story, but there's a Rastafari mansion denomination called the 12 tribes of Israel, and depending on when you're born, you're ascribed to a different tribe. So not going to repeat them all here, but Asher is the first. Sorry, I got that wrong. I know I shouldn't have said it out loud. Reuben is the first son of Jacob with Dinah, with Leah, and then Benjamin is the last son. I haven't heard Benjamin's name mentioned, so I don't think Benjamin's been born yet in these chapters. So what we're seeing here is the establishment of, again, God's nation on earth, the promises that were with Abraham, then Isaac, and now Jacob. You know, when it said that your seed shall multiply like the stars in the heavens, on the sand on the earth, and the dust on the earth. This is what we're now seeing. So, excuse me, my tripping up there is early in the morning. My brain's not fully functioning. But the second half of the chapter is possibly a reflection of the first, because, you know, after Jacob has all these children with his wives and the maidservants, then he wants to leave, and then Laban says, oh, well, you know, you can't leave until, you know, you have to take the striped lambs and not the speckled lambs, or vice versa. There's a really, yeah, so I pass all your flock today and turn aside every speckled and spotted sheep from there. So there's a really technical thing that Laban has given Jacob to whether he's allowed to go back to his homeland or not. So again, we've seen in previous chapters that Jacob is very cunning. So he makes his own striped and speckled lambs to give them that appearance, and then they start mating, they start having children, etc., etc. So his flock is then a lot stronger than even he imagined, and definitely what Laban was imagining, because Laban put these rules in front of Jacob, saying, you know, you can only take these types. But in Jacob, in his cunning, makes them mate a lot more than they would have done normally, and his flock is increased. So he leaves actually quite wealthy in flock, as well as wealthy in his kind of, you know, his entourage, if we like. So he leaves quite a powerful person. So yeah, but I think that second half of the chapter, when it gets quite detailed with the flocks and the stripes and who they're mating, how they're mating, is kind of a reflection of the first half of the chapter, which is about humans and how they're mating and deception and all that kind of stuff, really. So, you know, I'm not sure exactly the meaning of the speckled flocks. I might kind of come back later if I get time today and look that up a little bit more and see what the meaning of the speckled sheep was. But it definitely seemed to be as technical and detailed as human relations, really. And, you know, things that we know from life, things are messy. Life is messy. Relationships can get messy. And as we know, humans are also animals in a way. I don't know if this chapter's trying to share that humans are animals, but as we know from human behaviours, do you know what I mean? Instincts and primal urges can kick in, and we've seen that all the way through here, even with Lot's daughters, you know, sleeping with their father and all these kind of things, really. So yeah, again, really complicated in the sense of what it's trying to say, or complicated storytelling styles, if you like, to get from a writing analysis perspective. But yeah, interesting nonetheless. And it just shows the Bible's full of these twists and turns and quite complex ideas. So I'll leave it there. Have a blessed day. Malcolm Ken, have a good day. And God willing, yeah, more reasoning later or tomorrow. Blessed love. Give thanks.